Welcome, everyone, to Rookie Mistakes. I'm Ethan.
I'm Jeremy.
And we're bringing you the first podcast for those who don't know sports.
Yes.
It's a sports podcast for the sports inept, as we say.
Sports inept. When you came to me with this idea, I was like, that's kind of brilliant. I don't know any shows that talk about sports for people who don't know it that well.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, there was a real evolution here. First of all, I listen to sports podcasts, and I probably get 15% of what Bill Simmons says to me on a daily basis. So I thought, there's got to be a gateway podcast. There's got to be a podcast that introduces the idea of sports for someone like myself who doesn't know. And I'm not the only one, people like me. There's a big demographic. I think that females are more open to talking about it than males. But, there's a ton of people who don't really know sports, who want to go to a bar, who want to watch a game, but they just, find themselves socially debilitated because they can't really engage.
Right. And it's also just part of the conversation, and people want to feel informed. So
Yes.
It was
Social discourse is all sports.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And when you were telling me about the idea and we were kind of talking to other people about it, it was fascinating how many people were like, oh, I would totally listen to that, because not everyone wants to admit that they don't know a ton about sports.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Yeah, and I will say, on a more personal note, I feel much easier watching a sports game with you because I don't have to pretend like I know sports.
Right.
Where I stand on the totem pole of sports knowledge. So that's beautiful. And actually, I asked you to be a co-host because you have extensive knowledge about sports. You want to tell the audience a bit on your sports upbringing?
Sure. I mean, I've been a huge sports fan my whole life. I played every sport growing up. Grew up in New Jersey, so big fan of all the New Jersey, New York teams, and currently work at a sports media company. So dream job for me. I'm a huge sports fan. I follow all the sports pretty closely, at least the major ones. I'm not super in-depth knowledge like a Bill Simmons, for example. Some of the things he says flies over my head too. But I know a lot of the sports at a pretty decent level to be able to explain them to someone else. So I'm hoping I can bring some of that.
So
clarity
I'm
here.
excited to hear just some of your takes and just be able to have you very elementarily explain sports to me and our audience.
Let's go.
And our first podcast, which is what we're bringing you today, is how to watch football if you must. And, it's tips and tricks to be able to sit down on your couch on a Sunday night and watch a Jets game.
Yep. I think this is awesome. When we were talking about what do we want to do for the first episode and thinking about the timing, we've got the football playoffs coming up. It's going to be what everyone's talking about. People already talk about football a ton. So we figured what better way than to start with football. I wanted to throw some numbers your way.
Okay.
Just to give you and the audience a sense of how many people actually watch football, because it's pretty jarring. In 2023, for U.S. televised broadcasts, do you want to guess of the top 100, how many of them were football?
Okay. U.S. televised broadcasts. So this is not. We're not talking Netflix. We're not talking Hulu.
No.
It's like
on TV.
channel. It's
right.
on cable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because you have all of the old people who are watching Fox News, CNN, Tucker Carlson, and then you have the sports, and football is one of many. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kentucky Derby. I think that's a big one. Honestly, I want to say that's a big one. I used to live in Kentucky. People love that shit.
Okay, also a sport.
Best 2 minutes of all time, so they say.
Oh, okay.
And you have the World Series. It happens every year. You have the World Cup. It didn't happen last year, but you have things like this that actually have prominence. I can't say
top 100.
I can't say it's more than 50. So I'm gonna say. I don't know, 50.
93 of the top 100
That's
broadcasts
crazy.
in 2023
That's
were
crazy.
Football games.
It does show you how much more people care about football than any other sport.
It's nuts. Not only that, but how many people around you just care about football in general. It's nuts. For last year's Super Bowl 2023 in February, 115 million people watched the Super Bowl. Nuts.
That's nuts.
That's more than a third of the population in the U.S., which is wild.
And we're counting, 6-month-olds and 90-plus-year-olds.
True.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, really, what do you think makes football a distinguishing sport?
It's a good question. I think it's a little bit of two things. One, I think people love competition. I think seeing people compete at a very high level and doing athletic things that they can't do personally is really cool. I also think there's a little bit of like barbarian in us where it's like people hitting each other and like running
primal.
up and down.
It's
It's
very
very primal. I know a lot of people who don't like watching because they're like, oh, it's so scary, and they're hurting themselves. And that is true, but they have a lot of safety protocols in place. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Last stat here I have for you. The NFL this year averaged 18 million viewers per game this season.
Wow.
Which is just nuts. Like when you think about the magnitude of how many people care and are watching football, it's really insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would this is an interesting question. What team do you think on average has the most viewers and what has the least viewers?
Ooh. I would guess it's by just like geography of the country. So,
and not by how good the team is, because I feel like I feel like the Patriots, they're a patriotic team, no pun intended. But like people know them maybe a little bit more.
Maybe. I mean, they also have the whole New England region.
And they have the whole New England region. That's a great point.
They might be up there. They have been a historically very successful team, but it's a good question. Like the Kansas City Chiefs are really good, but they're in Kansas City.
Yep.
I'd be curious to see where they fall out. And also the Los Angeles Rams, they don't really have a fan base because they're kind of new, but they are in one of the biggest cities in the country.
Yes.
My guess is number one is probably the Cowboys. Number two, who play in Dallas. Number two, I might have a little East Coast bias here, but I think the Giants, the New York Giants. I think the Giants would be number two, but I don't know.
Okay,
we can look that up.
Yeah, that'll be for next time, folks.
Yeah, that's a fun one. But yeah, that's kind of the case. Like, if you guys weren't sure if people cared, people care. People are watching it. It's going to be a topic of conversation, and the playoffs are about to start, so this is your time to lock in.
Yeah, let's lock and load, baby.
Yeah.
So also, what I found fascinating is the history of the NFL, because it's got a pretty peppered history. And first of all, the NFL started in the 1900s, but before that, college football was a thing, and the first college game was in 1869.
Okay.
Between Rutgers and Princeton, and Rutgers actually won that, and it's Rutgers' claim to fame until this day. Nice. Rutgers won 6-4.
6-4? I thought it was 6-0.
It was 6-4. I looked that up only 15 minutes ago.
So boring.
But the other thing is how do you get 4
game.
Points? I don't exactly know. There might have been a different scoring.
We can get into that. There's a way. There's a way to get 4.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to let me know. But so you had college athletes playing in the late 1800s. And then the actual professional league didn't start till the 1920s. Mm-hmm. What did college athletes do, really good all-American college athletes do once they graduated school? Did they just like go to the workforce?
Probably. There was no professional league, I don't think, until the 1920s. I could be wrong.
They maybe had like intramurals or like something.
Maybe they just wanted to get their aggression out. I don't know. I think most of them just after college, there was no avenue to play football.
That it's interesting because
I could be wrong.
You have no incentive to play well in college, really.
Yeah. Also, like if you're not going to get paid after, and you're going to give yourself brain injuries, probably not going to play.
Yeah. So anyway, 1869 first college game between Rutgers and Princeton. In 1920, the AFPA, the American Professional Football Association, was formed, and it was formed when the first game between the Dayton Triangles and the Columbus Panhandles transpired at Triangle Park.
What?
Yeah, so
the Dayton Triangles?
The Dayton Triangles.
And Columbus
Panhandles. What I didn't know is the AFPA started in the Midwest, so you had all these random Midwest teams. Dayton actually took a dub, winning 14-0. They won.
Good for them.
And yeah, great for them. In 1922, the APFA changed to the NFL, but still, you didn't really have people getting paid much. But there's this dude, Red Grange. Great dude.
Haven't heard of him.
He actually went to U of I, and in, I think, 1924, he pocketed $100,000. And it was an annual salary by the Chicago Bears, formerly known as the Chicago Stanleys. Which is another ridiculous name.
Absurd
name. But he actually had a salary of $100,000 in 1924, and he got a share of the gate sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gate sales, for those unfamiliar, are the money that you make from tickets.
Yes.
So people coming into the stadium, he got a portion of that?
Apparently he got a portion of that.
What a good deal. $100K in 1924.
I know. It's $1.6 million in 2024, which is a pretty hefty sum of money.
Stanley? That was his name? No, that was
Red Grange.
Red Grange. Good for Red Grange.
But the thing is, and I'm interested this idea of gate sales, because you have like these like hard hitters today, like LeBron James. You think he's getting gate sales?
I don't think so. I think the way contracts are nowadays, players make so much money.
Yeah.
At least the top players. Like, if this guy's in the NFL nowadays this good, like, he's just going to make a ton of money. He doesn't need gate sales. But I think the owners just eat that up, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. It's also chump change, I have to imagine.
Probably. Compared to, like, what they're making, yeah, probably.
So this dude, Red Grange, probably known as the earliest professional football player only because he was the first player to hire a professional agent.
Okay.
And he signed the largest contract. So 1933 comes along, and the National Football League championship game was in Wrigley Field in Chicago, and Grange's Chicago Bears won this championship.
Oh, you would hope so.
You would hope so.
Was this guy, like, just way better than everyone else? Why is he making so much money?
I don't know much about stats nor how to interpret them.
Okay.
But I hear he carried it 4,000 times, and don't tell me over the course of what time period, because I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But he carried it 4,000 times with an average of 8.1 yards per carry, and so yeah, I don't know what that means, but he was a running back. He ran the ball.
That's a lot of yards.
So,
like, if that guy's playing nowadays, averaging 8 yards a carry, like, he's instant Hall of Famer. That's unbelievable. That's incredible. I'm glad his team won. That'd be embarrassing.
So there you go. I couldn't even tell you how he competes with today's world, but it's good to hear he's a good player.
Yeah, I'm glad he made it into the history lesson. That would have been a shame.
Yeah, it would have been a shame. Red Grange. So 1933 hits. He wins the national championship. Then World War II comes through, and after World War II, you have all these people coming back, these war vets who love the sport, probably PTSD induced, things like this. They love this type of stuff. And by 1949, there was an additional league that came into the U.S., and it was competing with the NFL for players, for contracts. And instead of killing the sport, the NFL merged this new league into the NFL, and they created one super league. And actually, in 1949, this dude, Paul Brown, who was the founder of the Browns, which is a team, he brought film study to the actual game in 1949. So he was like studying film.
Savant. Ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Very
cool.
much so. So this dude, Paul Brown, studying film. I hope he made a name for himself. I think he did, but I couldn't tell you much about it. 1960 comes through. A large demand for the NFL. The AFL is created, and the first Super Bowl is created between the AFL and NFL teams, which are, I guess, divisions.
So there was a championship before that. It just wasn't called the Super Bowl.
It wasn't called the Super Bowl.
Okay.
But the first Super Bowl was in 1967. Green Bay Packers won. And what's crazy, which I'm sure you know, which is that the trophy of the winning team today is named after the coach of the Packers.
Vince Lombardi, yes. The Packers won the first 2 Super Bowls.
Yes.
And their coach was Vince Lombardi.
Yes.
And that is who the big shiny trophy is named after.
Yes. So I did not know that, to those listeners out there, but I did read about it, and then I spit it as a fun fact the other day, and I actually pat myself on the back.
There you go. That's a quick little nugget.
Yeah,
if you want to get by, like, hey,
quick nugget. Remember that one, folks.
The Lombardi Trophy when they're bringing it out in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
people will think you know what you're talking about.
And what's crazy is to have a trophy named after you is pretty nuts.
Pretty cool.
It's pretty nuts. I mean, you have a legacy beyond belief.
What would you name the trophy if you were like? It would just be your like first or last name?
My last name is heavily utilized by Jews across Eastern Europe, so I don't really want to say that. It would be, someone else would get credit for it. Yeah, Lombardi is very unique.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
My friends call me Biggest, so I'm biggest
trophy. That's kind of great.
So maybe. But anyway, so that's just a little history. So again, college football started in the 1860s. NFL was created in 1922, and then Super Bowl first started in the 1960s, which is pretty crazy. Over 150 years of just history of football.
Yeah, I mean that's a great deep dive. There's a lot in there that I did not know. I mean, I only knew from when the Super Bowl era began, and truthfully, I don't know, a ton about the 60s and 70s of football. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's cool.
Nice. So I think, now that we've got the setup, right?
Yeah.
We should probably explain to people how the game works. Okay? So if you're convinced by now that people watch it, people care about it, Maybe you want to know how the game actually works, so that if you're sitting down watching with people who know, you're not super lost. Okay.
That's
So we're
fair.
going to go through a pretty high level breakdown of how the game of football works. And if you have questions along the way, stop me. And if you guys have questions that I did not get to in this breakdown, just let me know. Submit it in the comments.
Okay.
We'll get to it. Okay. So let's get to the very basics. Football, the goal, like most sports, is to score more points than the other team. Okay. And at any given time, you have 11 players against 11 players. Now, that's a lot of players on the field at once. The offense will have 11, defense will have 11.
Okay.
The reason there are so many players on the field is because the field is huge. The field is 100 yards in length.
Okay.
And then there are two 10-yard end zones, which is where you're trying to get the ball to. That's 120 yards. Okay. Just for comparison, I pulled up some fun facts here.
Okay.
Big Ben is
Big Ben.
100 yards tall.
That's
So
crazy.
if you were to lay Big Ben down, football field, 120
That's
yards
nutty.
with the end zone,
That's
still
crazy.
longer.
That's crazy.
I've got two more for you, okay?
Okay.
It is twice as long as the Tower of Pisa.
Wow.
So already leaning, if you just knocked it over, doubled it,
Yeah.
that's a football field.
That's crazy.
And then if you can't picture vertical buildings laying on the ground for length, bowling lanes are about 20 yards long.
Wow.
So if you made 6 of those,
wow.
that's how big the field is. And it's 53 yards wide. So the field is massive.
Yeah.
You need a lot of people to be able to cover all of that ground.
Yep.
So that is why there are 11 players on the field. Both teams have 53 players on the roster, which is why the sidelines are always packed with people running up and down cheering for their guys.
Nice.
But that's the basic setup.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything so far?
No, I mean 53 guys is a lot. If there's
a
11
lot.
on the field, it's 5 times as many people you have on the field at
That's a
any
good
given
point.
time. So
Yeah.
what's going on?
Okay, so you have your group of starters, and you have your starters for offense and defense. Okay, so 11 on offense, 11 on defense. Let's assume that's 22. Part of your starting group, you have guys who are usually in the rotation. Because football is such a physically demanding sport, guys need breaks all the time. So you have guys who are starters that may not play the first play of the game, but they're rotating in constantly. And those guys
see.
are also considered starters.
So how many people on a given team have never played a game of football professionally in their life?
You mean they're on a roster, but
They're
they've
on
never
a roster,
played?
but have never played. Never
Professionally in the NFL.
in the NFL.
I think it's unusual unless you're the third string quarterback.
Okay.
And even then, there's like a chance, right? But you probably only get to play in the preseason if you're
Okay.
like that level.
And third string quarterback is like the third in line to play quarterback?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If you're
Okay.
starter, if you're backup, and then the third string is
Okay.
like the
Okay.
backup, who's also probably amazing by our standards.
Yes.
But not good
of
enough.
course. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so 11 on 11, 120 yards in length, 53 in width, a lot of players on each team.
A lot of players on each team. Okay, so there's a lot going on. That's how the field looks. That's how the matchups look. And now I want to get into like the actual game, how that works. So there are 4 15-minute quarters that are divided into 2 halves. So you have your first half and you have your second half. The game starts with a coin flip, and whichever team wins the coin flip decides if they want the ball to start the first half or the second half. Okay. And whichever team takes it to start the first, the other team gets it to start the second. Okay? The way you move the ball in football. So let's say you're starting with the ball. We'll just call our team names Jeremy and Ethan.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say Team Jeremy starts with the ball.
Okay.
Our goal is to get from where we start to your end of the field to the end zone.
Okay.
And the ways you can score in football is by getting a touchdown, which is when you get the ball into that end zone.
Okay.
That's worth 6 points. Or you can kick a field goal, which is worth 3 points.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of people think that a touchdown is worth 7 points because a very typical score in the NFL will start out 7-0.
Okay.
The touchdown itself is worth 6, and then they kick something called the extra point, which gets you that 7th point.
I see.
Rarely missed, but it does happen.
Okay.
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 So we'll kind of get into a little bit about offense and defense. I don't want to dive too much into defense, but the offense can move the ball in 2 main ways. They can throw the ball, which is passing, or they can run the ball, which is called rushing.
Okay.
Okay? And you can get bigger gains, bigger chunks of yards by passing the ball, but you also don't want to be predictable. So teams will run the ball a lot as well so that the defense doesn't know what's coming.
I see.
Yeah. So those are kind of the 2 main things. If you see like a stat, like this team has 100 rushing yards, that just means that they ran the ball.
Okay.
And one important clarification is that let's say the quarterback throws to one of his receivers. when that guy catches it, anything he runs afterwards still considered a passing yard. Okay, not a rushing yard, even though he's running with the ball.
I see. So just so I understand this, if I as a quarterback throw it 10 yards to one of my teammates, and then he runs 20 yards.
Yes.
Those are all considered 30 passing yards in total.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
So there are quarterbacks whose stats look really good because they have players who are amazing once they catch the ball. They catch it and they make a bunch of moves and they run an extra 50 yards, helps the quarterback a ton.
That's interesting.
But yeah. That's good.
Okay.
That was a good clarification.
And then running is just the quarterback gives it to someone who just solely runs it up the field.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And that player can be used to catch the ball. Also, they can line up as a receiver. On offense, you have a quarterback. That's the most important position. You have the running back who usually runs the ball. You have your receivers and a tight end who's also kind of a receiver, but he's a little bigger so he can block. Okay. And then you have what's called your offensive line. And those are the people protecting the quarterback and blocking for the running back when he runs.
Okay.
So they're making sure that the defense doesn't hit the quarterback, that he has time to throw the ball.
I see. So they're protective.
Correct.
They're protective.
Exactly. And the defense is, we're not going to get into the positions. It's not worth it. But the defense has a very tough job. Because there are a lot
and
of
defense
rules.
wins games.
Defense wins championships.
Defense wins
championships.
That's what they say. Go blue.
Go blue. Yeah. Speaking of which, Ethan and I just had a pretty epic Monday night.
Yeah,
that
was fun.
As big Michigan fans, we went to, where was it? Blue Haven East.
Shout out Blue Haven East.
That place was packed.
It was packed. It was sweaty.
Yeah.
A lot of Mr. Brightside playing though.
A ton of Mr. Brightside. Just a great Michigan win.
A great Michigan
I never
win.
experienced a viewing experience like that. That was pretty awesome.
That was great.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it too is we had a reservation where we had to hit a minimum. So we had to hit $30 per person, which means we had to pretty much have 4 drinks per person.
That was
and on a Monday night.
That was so easy.
Not a big deal.
Didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
Nice. So, in terms of how the offense moves the ball, right? Because if they're trying to get to the other side of the field, there have to be certain limitations, right? You have the defense trying to stop you, but that doesn't mean you can run infinite plays. The offense has 4 plays to get 10 yards. And I know that doesn't seem like such a crazy task, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is, in reality, you only have 3 plays because on 4th down, you can choose to punt the ball away, which is where you kick it to the other team and make their distance to get to your end zone further.
I understand.
But let's say Team Jeremy is at our own 30-yard line and we have 70 more yards to go. Let's say it's 4th down. This is our last play. Play equals down. Those are the same, interchangeable.
Okay.
So if it's 4th down and we have, let's say, 5 more yards to get before we get that chunk of 10 yards, if we try to get it and we don't, then Team Ethan gets the ball at that spot, and then you only have 30 yards to go.
I see.
So you don't always want to go for it for all 4 plays because you could lose the ball, and the other team is a very short field.
Yep, and you give them a massive advantage.
Huge advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that a little bit in the game. Michigan tried to go for it around midfield, didn't get it. Washington scored a touchdown, and that was a big turning point. So the only other thing to say here is, like, when you get 10 or more yards, you get a new set of downs. So let's say it's 1st down and we throw the ball 20 yards. Team Jeremy throws the ball 20 yards from the 20 to the 40. We get another 1st down.
Okay.
It resets.
Okay.
And if we were to start the drive, which is like when your team has the ball, you're trying to drive downfield. If we get 4 yards and then the next play is 50 yards, resets. If we get 4 yards and then 7 yards, it also resets. So you're always trying to get the next 1st down so that you get more plays.
Okay, so let's say this. I'm on offense. I'm starting my drive downfield, and I'm on my 20-yard line, and it's 1st down and 10 yards. Yeah. And, we run it for 6 yards. Now it's 2nd down and 4 yards.
Yep.
And let's say we run it again for 2 yards. Now it's 3rd down and 2 yards.
Yeah.
Okay, so it just keeps on subtracting until you get that 1st down.
Exactly. Perfect example. And then what happens on 3rd down is if you have 3rd down and 2 yards to go, you might think, oh, that's really easy. But if the team knows that your tendency is to run the ball, they could bring a lot of guys on defense up to the line where you're snapping from and just hone in on the run. Wow. So you always have to be able to do
it's
both.
Mind games.
Yeah, it's mind games. It's scheming. It's trying to recognize where the other team is set up.
And this was the real downfall with Madden because you could see what the other team actually picked.
That's true. If you were looking at their controller.
If you were looking
Sounds like you were doing that a little bit.
It's the only way to win.
I stink at Madden, so I do not play anymore. The only other thing that I wanted to cover here, 3 important terms that you should know. The first is an interception. That's when the offense, let's say Team Jeremy, throws the ball.
Okay.
And Team Ethan, a defender, catches it instead of the offensive player. That's called an interception.
I see.
Or in football slang, a pick.
A pick.
A pick. Good word.
Good word to know.
There's a fumble. So if you're running with the ball, or if the quarterback has it and a defensive player knocks it out of their hands,
okay.
then that's a free ball, loose ball. Whoever lands on it, their team gets the ball.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And then the last one, this one comes up a lot, a penalty or a flag.
Okay.
So if you see that like yellow marker come up on the
Yes.
screen, it says flag, it means you did something that's not okay.
Yeah, and
So-
they're always so obscure, the flags.
Yeah.
There's like 100 different variable flags.
There are. There are. There are tons of penalties. Sometimes the rules don't make sense. People still get up in arms about it. But yeah, a lot of penalties. And what that means is, let's say my team, Team Jeremy, is on offense and Team Ethan is on defense, and you guys commit a penalty.
Okay.
And let's say it's a 10-yard penalty. That means my team moves 10 yards closer to the end zone. Okay? And then vice versa. If we commit a penalty, we move backwards.
Okay, so this is sort of a nuanced question. But let's say I'm on offense and it's second down and 10 yards to go, and then there's a penalty on you, the defense.
Good question.
Does it restart my downs?
Some penalties do, some penalties don't.
Okay.
We're not going to get into the specifics right now, but one example would be offsides. Offsides is a 5-yard penalty, but it's not an automatic first down. There are other penalties that may not give you the distance to get a first down, but they're technically an automatic first down.
I see.
Yeah, but good question. That's
Thanks.
Yeah. When you're watching, you can ask people if that's an automatic first down, and that's a pretty nuanced question.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of covers it. Did I miss anything? Anything else that you noticed in the game that you're like,
So
this feels basic, but I don't know what's going on?
Can we talk about the yellow line, and then there's this other green line that, like, when I'm watching...
Okay.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah. Good question. This is one that I've gotten before. The yellow line is what they show on TV so that the viewer knows where the first down marker is.
Okay.
So where the end of that 10 yards is.
see.
So if your team gets to that point, then you'll get another first down. What people don't always know, some do, some don't, is that line is not there for the players. The players do not see the yellow line.
I see.
There's an orange flag stick on the side of the field, and that is what the players look at to know where the first down is, where they need to get to get another set of downs.
I see.
Yeah.
And then there's this other line sometimes, which I think is like a field goal line. It's green.
Yes.
What's going on there?
So that one is the target line. When there's a kicker, they have their estimated like furthest distance of where they'd be comfortable kicking from.
Like a field goal.
A field goal, exactly. So your kicker kicks the field goal. If they make it, it's 3 points. Sometimes kickers can kick the ball 60 yards, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes your kicker can only kick it 52. So that line, that green line that you see, is that kicker's like distance where they're comfortable from.
So it's actually dependent on the kicker.
Yeah, sometimes.
I see.
It's not a guarantee that you get 3. You can have a 30-yard field goal, which should be really easy, and the kicker could miss it.
But it's interesting because I thought that was a universal line, but you're saying it actually is marked depending on who the kicker is for the team.
Specific to the kicker, correct.
I see. That's interesting.
So like the best kicker in the league, that line will be further away from the end zone because your team doesn't need to get as far for that kicker to get you 3 points.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
So I had, I did a little bit of research, and I'm trying to stump you a little bit with one of these questions.
Okay.
And granted, I actually don't know the answer to this either. So as you answer, I might have to look it up myself.
Okay.
But something that I want to hear you walk through is, imagine a football team. What is the average number of first downs they get in a game?
Oh,
on average.
Good question. Okay, the way I'm going to break this down, if you pull up the answer, that'd be good. Okay, the way I'm going to break this down is I think teams average around, I think the worst teams in the league average 280 yards per game. The best teams are probably 350 to 360, maybe even more. But I'm going to take 320 as my average.
Okay.
And let's say if you were to get a perfect 10 yards every time you got a first down, that would be 32 first downs. So I'm assuming I would cut that in half because you're not always getting 10 yards exactly, and you're not getting first downs consistently. I'm going to say 16 is my guess.
Not bad.
Okay.
So in the last 20 seconds, I couldn't actually get an average overall. But what I can get you is in the 2023 season, I can give you Dallas had, which was the best, ranked number 1, they had an average of 22.6.
Ooh, okay.
And the last person, the New York Jets, had an average of 15.3.
Okay, so I went with the low average.
Yeah, but you take the
Look,
average of those.
I was in the range.
You were in the range. you were right smack dab in the
Okay,
middle.
so the average is probably like 18, 19.
Exactly, 18,
All
19.
right. Good to know.
Yeah,
Good to know.
there you go.
I'm glad I didn't botch that completely. It could have been way worse.
It could have, but I'm sure if you would ask me a football question, it would be
I mean, I can, but it's up to you.
hit me.
I also don't know this exact answer.
Okay.
But we talked about field
That's what we
goals.
like on this podcast.
Just
We're a couple of
a
bullshitters.
lot of uncertainty. Okay. My question is, what % of field goals are actually made? This is tough because you don't know like how long is a long field goal, how often they try
Yeah.
it. But assuming your team tries to kick a field goal, it means they think you can make it.
Yeah.
What % do you think makes it? I'm going to look up just to make sure.
That's interesting. So, like you said, no one's going to kick a field goal with the expectation of missing it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, right, it's like the end of the game and they need to make it and they need some miracle. So, now it's a question of what % certainty do you need to be to kick a field goal? And I think it's got to revolve around 75 to 80. I'm gonna say the lower of that, so I'm going to say 75. And I actually am now trying to remember all these football games I've watched and how many times people have missed field goals.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go 5 percentile points below that. I'm going to say 70%
Okay.
of field goals kicked are made.
I think you talked yourself out of the right answer. The 2022 season was 86%.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty good.
crazy.
Being a kicker is a terrible job because you're expected to make kicks, and if you miss them, everyone hates you.
Yeah.
So you don't really notice when kickers make field goals. You're like, good, that's what you're supposed to do. Thank
Yeah.
you. If they miss it, you're like, you're the worst player in
Yeah.
the world. I could do that.
It's a heartless job to have.
Yeah. There's a segment that they do on ESPN now where Sunday mornings before NFL games, they bring a fan out to kick a field goal with like the crew who's there. And it's like a 33-yard field goal, which is the distance for an extra point. And you win like $10,000 if you make it. I think they've had 1 out of like 20
That
people
is
make
crazy.
it. It's a lot harder than it looks.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I also heard that a lot of field goal kickers used to play soccer just because they have just like a powerful foot.
Maybe. It would make sense.
Okay.
I know there are rugby players who play. There's a guy in the Giants who used to play rugby. Maybe.
All right,
That
there
could
you
be.
go. So I guess what I'm wondering now, you gave me a pretty quick and interesting lesson on actually how the sport is played, but how do I make it known that I know how football is played and I know the sport?
Love it. Okay, so we're moving into a draft right now. Ethan and I have prepared our top picks of what you can say so that people think you know what you're talking about, okay?
Precisely.
Do you want...
Which is really the point of this podcast.
Yeah, you just gotta pretend. That's all this is about.
Yeah.
You don't need to know anything. All right. Do you want to go first or second?
I defer to you.
Look at that. Defer is when you choose not to receive the ball to start the game.
There you go.
That's pretty good. All right, I will go first. Let's see. Okay, my first pick, it's going to be Let's Go. Let's go is just anytime your team does something good, just screaming Let's Go. If you're at a bar, I guarantee you hear Let's Go out of someone's mouth, just one person 100 times. It's just so reliable.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong. I got Let's Go. That's my first pick.
It's a good pick. I have to give it to you. It works in pretty much every scenario. Mm-hmm. It suggests you really know what's going on. And I think my first pick is of that same caliber. It's Way to Be.
Okay.
And Way to Be is perfect because it assumes you have a personal relationship with whoever made such event.
Yeah.
It's like Way to Be. It's like,
like,
it's
my guy, Way
it's
to
one
Be.
of your boys. It's like Way to Be. And I think that like it's got that real human to human aspect to it that really suggests you know the sport.
Okay. All right, you get another one. We're going snake draft.
Okay.
So you have next pick, and then I have 2.
So this is a great one that I've been hearing recently. Moving the chains.
Nice.
So
Nice.
moving the chains, from what I know, is you're driving on offense and you're consistently getting first down. You're chipping away. You're really moving your way towards the end zone, and you're moving the chains.
Mm-hmm. Do you know why it's called chains?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. So you know how I told you about the orange flag stick?
Yes.
That they use? So there are 2
To
of
designate
those.
the first down.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you have one to designate the first down, and you have another one that signifies where the ball starts from, which is called the line of scrimmage. Those 2 flag sticks are connected with a chain.
Wow.
So when you say moving the chains,
You're like moving them downfield.
you're moving the yard markers down the field.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay, well, there you go. I didn't even need to know that to use
There
the
you go.
term. So there you go.
Moving the chains, that's a good one. Okay. My next pick, I'm going to go with that's a hold.
That's a hold.
Okay. A hold is a penalty. This really works at any point in the game. If a play is going on and you just point at the screen and you go, that's a hold. And everyone's going to be like, hell yeah, that was a hold.
They're going to be right by your side.
It's going to be, that's golden. That's a hold. Also, anytime you disagree with the ref,
that's
goes
a hold.
over well. That's a hold. You throw up the hold signal like that.
And the beauty of that, from my standpoint, is I have no idea what's a hold and not. And also, most other people don't really see these things either.
Right.
So, like, people will probably listen to you.
They're going to think you know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
they're going to believe you.
They're going to be like, you're right. That was
They're going to jump on that bandwagon as soon as they can.
Yeah. All right. My next pick is just anytime your team does something wrong, just what are we doing? Just a nice, what are we doing? You're so disappointed.
That's great.
You're invested. You're like, I can do better than that. What are we doing?
Yeah.
All right. That's my third pick.
That's a good pick, and it actually relates to my next pick. And the beauty of that is the usage of the word we. It's the pronoun of like your involvement with the team. It's like you could be the owner. Like, what are we doing?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like you really feel like you're one of them. And my next pick is calling specific teams mine and yours.
Okay.
So my
like
dad
it.
does this a lot. My dad, he's a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, and he always goes, my Eagles are playing this Sunday. And it's like, I didn't know the Eagles belong to you, but like I like the usage. Or like, are your Cowboys playing this week? It's beautiful. It flows off the tongue. It sounds great. It really suggests an investment with the team that I love. So
Okay. All right.
that's
So
my
we've
next
got.
pick. So
This is your last one.
this is my last one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. Okay, so I really like Go For It.
Damn. That was on. Shoot. That was on my list.
So
I don't know what to pick next.
good luck. I'll give a 20-minute
give it- yeah.
20-minute explanation.
Give
so
a
you
little
can think a
speech
little
here. I gotta.
But Go For It is beautiful. Go For It is usually said on 4th down when you're on offense and you want your team to actually go for it. So instead of punting and giving the ball to the other team, you actually try to drive down the field and get that first down again. And the beauty of Go For It is it shows a real sense of risk and just like dedication to the sport, to the touchdown, to the desire, to the grit, to the pure motivation and inspiration for the sport. And Go For It is just like, yeah, we got to get it. We know we need to do it. Let's just push this down the field. It's great.
Okay. I appreciate you buying me some time there because
I threw in a couple synonyms there just to...
I didn't expect you to take that. So that really threw off my board here. All right. Okay. You bought me a lot of time and I'm still on the fence. I'm going to go with one that's a little more niche.
Okay.
But if your team is on defense, you're trying to sack the quarterback. That means tackle him before he can pass the ball. Anytime your guys are running after the quarterback, if you just scream, hit him, okay?
That's great.
Then
That's
you're good. I do that at least 10 times a game. My team's on defense, just go, hit him, hit him.
It's also great because it's a defensive call out.
Yeah.
And like usually, I said everything when you're on offense, you're moving the chains, you're going for it, but hit him is great because now your team's on defense, you got to sack.
Exactly. And you don't want to be bored. You want to cheer a little bit while your team's on defense.
I think that's great.
All right. So we've got I've let's go, that's a hold, what are we doing, and hit him.
Mm-hmm.
And you have
way to be, moving the chains, calling things mine and yours, specifically teams, and then go for it.
Okay. It's a good draft. We'll let you guys decide who won.
Yep.
That's a pretty good draft. All right, honorable mentions. I've got terrible call.
Nice.
Just anytime a call goes against your team, terrible call.
That's good.
Disagreeing with the refs is a constant there. Similar to what you said about go for it, I've got get there. If your guy is running towards the first down, towards that yellow line that you see, and he's real close, and you're just go for it, get there.
That's great. And also, quick shout out because I know Jordan Rich says that a lot.
Does he?
Goes
Nice.
get there. It's really well said. It's well placed, and honestly, it gets the people going. So
Just get there. You're screaming at the players. They can't hear you. They can't see the line. It's fun though. It's a good one. I've got calling the refs zebras.
Nice.
That's a fun one. They wear the striped shirts.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's actually very funny.
they look like zebras. And then anytime the ref is making a call, just a good bit to motion along with them. If they're going false start, they're circling their hands. False
Nice.
start.
Yeah.
Offense. It's just
That's great.
that
That's
hits
very good.
every time.
That's very good.
That gets a good laugh out of me.
A couple I had saying tutty instead of touchdown.
Oh, okay.
It, it just suggests an intimacy that you have with the game. We have, so this is a good one, a pick six. So I think you explained what a pick was. It's an interception. It's when the defense catches the ball that the offense threw. And when they catch the ball and they run it all the way back for a touchdown for 6 points, it's called a pick six.
Pick six. Yep. That's
Great
a good
term
one.
to know.
That's a good one.
And that's what I had. Those are a few honorable mentions on my side.
Nice. All right. If we missed anything, let us know.
Yeah.
But I think that should get you through your next few football experiences.
Yeah.
That should have you covered.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to use these next time I'm at the bar. And I guess this does really relate to our next segment, which is, a girlfriend of mine pretty recently was talking to me, and she said, Ethan, going to a bar during a sports game is the best time to pick up guys and to just like meet new people. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's a great call. I'm a little bit insecure about doing so, but like, I'm glad that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And she goes, yeah, I just need someone to help me figure out what are the games that I should go to the bar for. Like, what are the top games? If I'm going to a bar, one game this week, what game should I go to and why?
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could help walk me through this.
Yep. So this is something we're going to do every week, guys. We're going to give you what you need to know basically about sports that week, and we're going to call it Hold My Beer. The Hold My Beer segment, Hold My Beer is a saying that you say when someone's trying to be like, oh, I can do this, this, and that, and you're like, hold my beer, watch me do it.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
like someone's trying to explain to you like, oh, this is what's happening on the screen and whatever. Like, after this episode, you're going to be like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
I know football.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Hold My Beer segment we're going to do every week. We're going to give you guys what you need to know about sports in that coming week, what you should be watching for, what are the key storylines. So this coming weekend, we have the NFL playoffs. First week of the NFL playoffs. It's called the Wild Card Weekend or
and
Super
quickly,
Wild Card
like
Weekend.
very, very simply, like playoffs. What's the deal? Like, what is it exactly?
So in football, there are 32 teams. 14 teams make the playoffs.
Okay.
The top 2 get a bye, so they don't play this week. But the other 12 play.
And these are now the only teams that can win the championship.
Correct. These are the only teams left. Everyone else is done. They're thinking about their draft picks for next season.
Okay.
They're enjoying a little vacation. Cancun is a big thing.
Nice.
When your team is out of the playoffs, other teams make fun of you by saying, on 3, Cancun. 1, 2, 3.
That's
Cancun.
funny.
So that's a good little dig at a team that's not good. But if you lose a playoff game, you're out. It's win or go home. Okay. So the key games that you guys need to look out for this weekend, the NFL's smart. They put the best games in prime time. So Saturday night at 8 p.m. is our first big matchup to watch this weekend. It's the Kansas City Chiefs against the Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
Those two teams, incredibly fun, usually very high-scoring offenses. The Dolphins this year were the second highest-scoring team in the league.
Wow. Okay.
And the Chiefs have won 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls, and they've been in 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. So they've been one of the best teams in the league for the last several years. And their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is widely considered the best quarterback in the league.
And Super Bowl's championship game.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes, Patrick Mahomes is a guy I've heard of.
Yes.
He's pretty young.
Is he? Is he 26 maybe?
Yeah, I guess that's not too young, but
no,
I
mean that's pretty
feel
young. yeah. Think about how much money we could have if we were really good at football.
If only. Okay.
Another player you may have heard of on the Chiefs is Travis Kelce.
Of course.
Of, I would argue, his own fame, but others would argue Taylor Swift's fame.
Which I recently heard.
Yeah.
What? Taylor Swift's cat has a net worth more than Travis Kelce. And the reason is because her cat has been in more marketing videos, has been in more ads, has been in more everything that it actually has a net worth of much more than Travis Kelce.
Is her cat signing contracts? What? Like
I have no idea, but what this suggests to me is her cat is more recognizable than Travis Kelce. Like I could pick her cat out of a crowd of cats more than I could pick Travis Kelce out of a crowd of dudes.
Just a cat.
Oh, wait, that's all I'm.
Unless the cat's like blinged up. I don't.
That's just what I heard.
Right.
I think it was from the New York Times, so a reputable source.
No
but,
way. All right.
But anyway, Travis Kelce is someone I've heard about. Good looking dude.
Yeah.
Good football player.
He's an offensive player. He plays tight end for the Chiefs.
Which is a receiver.
Yeah. He's someone who catches the ball.
He catches the ball.
Does a little bit of blocking.
Okay.
If you need to know about one player on the Dolphins, his name is Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
He's a wide receiver, so he catches the ball. He is insanely fast. He's number 10, real short. You would not think that he'd be like a high impact player. Every player in the NFL is incredibly athletic. He makes all of them look unathletic. He is a freak. He is just so fast. Very fun to watch. So
that's sick.
if you're watching Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Chiefs against the Dolphins. Look
Good
out
game
for
to go to
Patrick
a bar
Mahomes.
for.
Great game to go to a bar for.
Okay.
Saturday night's going to be packed. I'm going to a Dolphins bar.
Nice.
It's going to be a good time. I'm not a Dolphins fan, but it'll be fun.
Nice. I didn't even know there were Dolphins bars in the
Neither
city.
did I. But after the Michigan game, I was like,
Yeah.
how can you not
There's
watch at a team bar? It's so
and there's
fun.
a bar for everyone, really.
That is true. All right. So that's Saturday night.
Saturday
8
night.
p.m.
Okay. 8 p.m. Eastern.
There will be a ton of people packing the bars for that.
Okay.
Great time to go flex your knowledge, meet some people.
Yep.
All right. And then we've got Sunday night at 8 p.m. We have the Los Angeles Rams against the Detroit Lions. Okay. Now this one is fun because the quarterback for the Rams is Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
He played his first 12 seasons of his career with the Lions in Detroit. So 12 years with the Lions and now his third year with the Rams.
Okay.
And the Lions quarterback, Jared Goff, played his first 5 years with the Rams.
Wow.
And now plays with the Lions. So quarterbacks who switch positions,
Yeah.
they took over for each other basically.
That's
Are now
crazy.
playing their old teams in Detroit. So pretty fun storyline there. Quick facts about them. The Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Matthew Stafford in his second year with the Rams won a Super Bowl. The Lions have never even made it to the Super Bowl. So, but they're coming off a very strong year.
So they're the underdogs.
You would think so.
Okay.
The Lions had a really strong year, and they actually won their division, and they're the home team for this game. So they are the favorite in this game.
Wow.
The Rams are the underdog.
Okay.
But it's going to be a fun matchup. That game could go either way.
Are you watching it?
I'll be watching. Yeah, I'll be watching.
So, okay, this is at 8 Eastern Sunday.
8 p.m. Eastern.
So how long do these games last? Because if it's, it's a school night. So, like,
It's true.
on average, if I'm watching a football game, what is it going to take?
I think you should plan for 3 hours.
Okay.
Keep in mind, there are a lot of commercial breaks.
Okay.
So you can get up, get some snacks, get some food.
Nice.
You don't have to be locked in every second of every game.
Yep.
But yeah, I would allocate about 3 hours.
Okay.
Saturday night, more reasonable. You can go out, have some drinks.
Yeah. Saturday night makes sense. Yeah.
Sunday night, I'm not going to tell anyone to go to a bar. I'll probably watch from my couch, but it'll be a fun game.
Okay, so quickly, just go over these two matchups one more time. Saturday night is
Saturday night, 8 p.m. We've got Chiefs against the Dolphins.
okay.
Sunday night, 8 p.m. We've got the Rams against the Lions.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds great.
That's what to watch, people. Flex this new knowledge you have.
Yep.
Sweet.
And I think that about wraps it up for the first epi.
That's pretty. Did we miss anything? That was awesome.
We didn't miss anything. Future episodes, we'll be taking questions and ideas from you guys. We will, on our YouTube channel, submit them in a Google form.
Nice. Yep.
You can comment. You can fill out the form.
Yep. And next week we're talking about sports betting.
Sports betting.
So submit your questions. Sports betting, very complicated topic.
Very.
Can make a lot of money.
Can make
but
a lot
it's
of money.
dangerous. We're not
Yeah.
promoting. We're not
not
saying anyone
promoting.
should gamble, but if you do,
Yeah.
we got you covered next
And
week.
at FanDuel, in case you're watching,
DraftKings pod here.
Yeah.
But if either one of them sponsored us, it'd be hype.
And it's in time for the playoffs, which is perfect.
Yes.
Because if you are looking to bet, then this is a good time to do
A
so.
lot of money gambled on the playoffs. So next week we're talking about sports betting. We're going to be doing one episode a week. The goal is to release these on Thursdays.
Yep.
You guys can find us, Rookie Mistakes, on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on YouTube. And check us out on Instagram, TikTok. It's Rookie Mistakes _pod.
Okay.
But yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. And
We'll see y'all next week.
we'll see y'all next week.